Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 18th January 2018. The first article, can government mandate sharing of biometric data? Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court started hearing the Aadhaar and related issues. So obviously we will be finding valuable information related to rights of the citizen, state-citizen relationship, and right to privacy, etc. So that's why we are going to keenly follow these particular arguments in the court. Today, what happened is this. The first is state and citizen relationship. It is built on certain foundations. That is, the state shall not intervene with regard to the individual and his personal sphere. In this case, the biometric data, which is intricately connected with an individual, can the state just take it away from him? And second is, our common will has to be protected and determined by the legislature. So without the sanction of the legislature, can it take away the data from us, biometric data from us? And third aspect is, later Aadhaar Act was passed by the Parliament. So in such a scenario, the Aadhaar bill was projected as money bill. To what extent Speaker has authority to decide it? Does the Speaker's decision can't be questioned by the judiciary? So in this case, P. Chidambaram Senior Counsel has stated that it is the members who can't question that, the Speaker's prerogative, but the judiciary can question it under judicial review. So, with regard to the state and citizen relationship are concerned, the right to privacy guides citizens' personal space. That is what is the Supreme Court has clearly stated in its full bench verdict. So, if Aadhaar is violative of this right to privacy, it becomes null and void. So, this is what is the debate that has started now. And second aspect is talking over a law. So, this is about Supreme Court and its procedures. Now, there are systems, checks and balances. These have to be put in place to avoid the misuse of power by any agency. As Aristotle said, virtue and power cannot coexist. We need a constitutional government so that the power can be kept in check. So that's what Aristotle's opinion was. So in these circumstances, our constitution or our procedures have kept huge faith in the Chief Justice office. And Chief Justice of India is famously called as the master of the roster. It means he can decide to whom the cases can be allocated to. So who can sit on which bench and what. So this power can be misused. This is what is the issue raised by 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court. And the second is, the entire functioning of judiciary is struck with secrecy. Why this secrecy is being existing in judiciary? One of the fear is politicization. And there is another criticism is, in the name of independence of judiciary, judiciary is trying to become unaccountable and there is a lot of secrecy related to the judicial actions. So, we need to ensure a balance. We need to ensure an amount of transparency and procedure in the working of higher judiciary. But however, the judiciary is stuck with the emergency mindset. During emergency, it has been famously said that when judiciary was asked to bend, it has kneeled down before the executive. At that point of time, a famous word that has come into existence was committed judiciary. What was executive expecting from judiciary is to abide by its decisions. And in ADM Jabalpur case, the judiciary failed to uphold the right to life and liberty of the citizens, and it has led to the excesses during the emergency. At that point of time, Mr. Hansraj Khanna, only dissenting judge, was deprived of the Chief Justice position, and later Mr. A.N. Ray was elevated as the Chief Justice, bypassing the 3 senior most judges. So these all showed how executive authority can compromise independence of judiciary. So in these circumstances, judiciary is stuck with that particular mindset and it believes that independence of judiciary shall be independence from executive. But if we do not have in-house mechanisms of our in-house objective procedures, then it has to depend upon the rationality reason of one single individual, that is the Chief Justice of India. So we need to set in the house in order. And third aspect over here is the Supreme Court of India shall act as a constitutional court primarily and then appellate court. But many a times it is criticized that the Supreme Court's work is mostly involves to look into appeals and also petitions that are coming under Article 136, that is special leave petitions. So it has been said it's a glorified trial court rather than a constitutional court. So how this has to be addressed? And there is no coherence in the Supreme Court's work. All the benches work independently from each other, and we need to bring in some coherence through its structure. So these are the points which are being highlighted. Let me repeat them again. So Supreme Court is, our entire work of the Supreme Court is based in secrecy. And judicial independence is coming from the emergency mindset, and judiciary is looking at it from the same dimension. And third, there is no coherence in the work, and there is no greater focus on the constitutional work in the Supreme Court. So for this, what this author suggests is, let's make three divisions in the court. One is admission, appellate division, and constitutional division. Let this constitutional division consist of 5 senior most judges. And admission division, anything which is coming through the special leave petition has to be seen or monitored or screened by this admission division. And then appellate division, it will hear the cases which are coming from the lower courts. Almost some 7 benches shall be the appellate courts. So this is how we have to restructure it to bring in greater coherence and coordination in judicial functioning. We also set in processes and procedures in order so that there will be no excessive reliance on the Chief Justice of India and his office. This is what is the issue. And when Mr. Balakrishnan was the Chief Justice of India, can judicial work of the Supreme Court be brought under Right to Information Act or not is the question that has come up. He has asserted that the Chief Justice of India is not an individual and it is an office in its own self, and it cannot be brought under the RTI Act. That's what his assertion was. So it is not the first time the Chief Justice of India's office has come into controversy. Now, no extra year. Remember my statement over here, this. Courts cannot be used for political ends. The courts are supposed to be the judicial organs, and courts' constitution, if it becomes a means towards political ends of the individuals, obviously in those countries the democracy will be threatened. So, in Sri Lanka, a constitutional amendment process is underway. There was huge centralization of power in Sri Lanka because of the presidential form. Now, presidential too, it wants to shift to parliamentary form where there can be greater division of power. So, in this parliamentary form of government, we have to ensure proper sharing of power, division of power between Sinhalas and also between Tamils. So in this process, to cut down the powers of the president, his tenure was reduced from 6 years to 5 years. Now, the very government that has brought in this amendment, the president has took the matter to the Supreme Court there, asking that can he have an extra year in office. So it clearly shows a political opportunism. That's what this article states about. But irrespective of that, remember, the courts cannot be used for political gains. Left behind. Now, every year, Pradham Foundation, it gives a report, that is annual status of education report. So, the learning outcomes are a major problem in India. Previously, it was the enrollment rates and dropouts. It has specifically pointed to the learning outcomes. In this, there are gender differences and also interstate differences. And second aspect is, this year's report specifically focused on digital divide with regard to school education is concerned. How shall we address this? So enlargement of the scope of the right to education is one thing which has been suggested by this article. As of now, it is up to 14 years of age. So there shall be a uniform definition of the child up to 18 years. If we can extend it up to 18 years, we can provide for necessary vocational education to children, and it provides for guaranteed job, or it is in tune with the demographic stage India is going through. That's what it suggests for. Price prescription, it is not an important article, but remember this way. In smoking or any policy action against cigarettes or any forms of tobacco, a decision, if it has to be taken, the health shall be the primary perspective. Rather than the livelihoods of the BD makers, etc., the health of the people in this country shall take primacy. So GST and taxation can be a tool to decrease the tobacco consumption. That's what is their emphasis is. Now we have seen in the last year that the pictorial on cigarette packets and on BD packets. So these pictorials on BD packets were opposed on the presumption that it can threaten the livelihoods of the BD makers. So that you need to understand here. 3 cheers for civil society. You know what is a civil society? So it is an intermediary space between the state and the citizen, and this is an associational space. So it provides for democracy, or it strengthens the democracy by enlarging the people. That's why it is an instrument for participative democracy in the country. But however, if this particular civil society has to exist, we need to have liberal democracy in the country as a precondition. So the civil society has more democracy role, developmental role too. If we come to Gujarat during 2014 elections, Gujarat model of development was sold throughout the country as an ideal model. There are inherent frictions in this model of development. This model of development believes in trickle-down approach. If you can amass the growth, increase the growth, the benefits of growth can reach to the betterment of everyone. But trickle-down effect has failed by and large across the world. And this model has its strong roots in neoliberalism, which has led to the privatization of education, health, etc. So, the alternative movements which are growing in Gujarat now, so these are questioning this developmental model. They want an inclusive development model, raising the opportunities, providing for land and other means of production towards the Dalits. They are talking about congruence between class and caste in the Dalit communities. So, Dalit, though seen as a caste, so their deprivation also makes them to coincide with the class structure of India. So that is being exposed over here. So material deprivation of Dalits, lack of opportunities, and increasing inequalities because of neoliberalism, all these are getting into new focus in the Gujarat. And second is the identity politics in Gujarat. These are more getting replaced by developmental narrative today because of the civil society actions and activism. That's what this article emphasizes on. A supreme spat, already we discussed this article yesterday. So, substance of the matter is more important than their procedure or their pattern of dissent. So, why they are dissenting? On what they are dissenting? See more on what they are dissenting. That's what this article tries to emphasize on. And then, India needs to focus eastward. So few days back, we saw China's India War, a book. In that also, author clearly stated that the future of India or India's war comes from ocean rather than the land. So India has to careful in building its navy. That's what the author has said. I don't remember the name of the author. That's the essence of his interview in Hindu. So the same thing was stated by Mr. Madhav. What he states is, India has to look from west to east, and balance of power is shifting from Atlanto-Pacific to Indo-Pacific. So in these circumstances, Asia or Asian century is going to come up, and in this India is expected to play an important role. So tomorrow, India, if it has to focus strategically, the focus should be more on Asia. Terror disrupts. In the Raisana dialogue, Sushma Swaraj, External Affairs Minister of India, she has clearly stated that the state-sponsored terrorism is a grave threat to the nations. In the last page, I gave you the notes that will be available to you at laix.in/CivilsPrep. Today, what are the statements we discussed? So, judiciary shall not be opaque, and judiciary has got too much of distrust towards the executive and legislature. It is the fear of politicization of the court. This fear of politicization has come from the emergency mindset. Judiciary need to overcome that, and there has to be greater coherence with the judicial work. This has to guide the reform of the Supreme Court and bringing in new procedures out there. That is what is the statement we made. And then coming to civil society, we have clearly stated that the future of civil society exists in its relevance to the masses. So in these circumstances, questioning the very developmental model given by neoliberalism, our top to bottom approach, our rising inequalities, this is going to be the future of space for working of the civil society. So these are the things which we tried to learn today. Thank you very much and all the best.